Welcome to the Podium Proof F1 podcast. I'm Frank Alessi.
I'm David Alessi.
All right, little special edition here as the boring season of F1 has exploded in all kinds of news over the last week and a half or so.
Bro, it's been out of nowhere. Like, just shit's hitting the fan everywhere.
I mean, once the Andretti news dropped, it was just like a snowball.
Nobody wanted to be the first one.
This was a wild week of F1 news.
Indeed, it has been.
And I think the snowball is only fixing to grow because one of the things that happened is going to have a chain effect of probably at least 3 or 4 other moves.
Actually, I think we could say two of those things that happen are going to have a chain effect of things to come.
Well,
potentially. Yeah.
If one thing happens, then we could have, the chain effect could be infinite, you know?
Yeah. So, we've got a few big ticket items to go over. But before we dive into that ever-growing snowball as it's plummeting down the hill, let's talk about some whiskey.
All right, you go ahead first because I got to open this thing.
Oh, fresh bottle crack?
Yeah.
All right. I will be drinking some Penelope.
Oh, shit.
Barrel Strength Louisiana Select Toasted Series.
Ooh, nice.
Comes in at a 112.8 proof. Right in that sweet spot. And this is a delicious bottle.
What number is that one?
This one is, you know what? We'll just go ahead and finish that bottle off.
That one is empty.
That one is empty. This one's number... These aren't numbered.
Oh, okay. So that's the first one. So
that's the one. They didn't label the first one as number one?
No, because they didn't think it was going to sell out statewide in a day.
I got you.
So that's why there became batch 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Yeah, so number one.
Yeah, that was the one I traded you for something while we were in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So
here we go.
Ooh, that was a nice one.
That was a good one.
Nice synthetic cork. Ooh, I know that bottle.
Oh my God.
I saw that black synthetic cork. I knew what that one was.
So this is my first ever bottle of this. Hold on, let me get a little pour first so I can cap it. Oh, that was a heavy pour. All right, so this is New Riff single barrel, 110.9 proof. Some other nerdy information, but it don't matter. We finally have New Riff being sold here in Louisiana. So I had to scoop one up.
Man, I got to be on the lookout.
I had a sample of yours before, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
This one, the nose is doing all kinds of magic.
I'm hoping we'll start getting New Riff as a mainstay here. Because that one that I had, that was just through the Virginia Bourbon Lovers group that we did.
That's right.
That was just a group barrel pick. Thoughts?
I love that. That is so good. Super sweet, kinda like that Maker's feel in terms of, like, proof point.
Hmm.
Like, I know it's the same, but, like, a lot of times you get certain whiskeys that a 110 feels like you're drinking a 130.
Yeah.
Um, it's kinda right on the money, like, just that right amount of heat, but all that flavor comes through. Super, super sweet.
Mine that I
Very
had
sweet.
was pretty sweet too.
I like that a lot. Man, that is good. Whew, that's gonna be a dangerous bottle, I can tell you right now.
Look, I tell you, mine didn't last terribly long.
That will be a hard one to stay out of.
Hmm. Know that feeling.
That's crazy how sweet it is for not being a weed it. No,
If I remember right, that one that I had, it was like a very very heavy on the vanilla,
mhm,
but had like whipped cream flavor almost.
yeah,
Like it was definitely a sweet one for sure.
yeah, I'm gonna let it open up a little bit before I start trying to dissect it, but, I mean, just off the bat, it's super sweet, which I love.
Yeah.
When it's got that proof on it,
Hmm.
it's magic. So, alright, bruh, let's get into some F1. I'll let you take the lead with the first news story.
So we'll start off with Andretti was officially denied their entry. Uh, it was denied with the possibility for, I guess, reapplication, if you want to call it that, for 28. Um, the the word, or I shouldn't say the word, what it was stated for was one, they didn't want another customer team. You know, they want any new team to come in, they want them to be a works team. The other reasoning that was given was they didn't feel that they would bring enough to the sport with them being on the
Value-wise.
grid, value wise. Yes. Um, you know, there's a lot more to talk about on that. But as far as the not wanting another customer team on the grid, well, first of all, that's not something that you just decided on last week. Like that would have been something that you knew you didn't want from the start. So why not say it? Why drag this whole thing along if from the beginning you knew you didn't want another customer team and it was known that they were going to come in as a customer team until the new engine regs came out. That's what they were shooting for having the Cadillac engine. And they said, "Oh, well, we don't feel like, they'd be able to, you know, have it all ready, focus on 25 and still be focused on 26." You don't know that. That's for them to figure out.
Right, that's not for you because
You
they
know?
said they wouldn't be able to be competitive. That's not your
Yeah,
concern.
right.
No, last year, nobody on the grid except for Red Bull is competitive.
Mhm.
So, like,
Yep,
where is this bar coming from? That should not even be part of the process here. You
exactly.
who's to say that somebody's gonna be competitive or not?
Mhm.
And also, who's to say how can you possibly expect somebody to come in and day 1 be fighting at the front?
Yeah. Like it is known that you are not by the book, by history has told us, with the exception of Braun, you are not going to be competitive until at least 5 years in.
But even Braun,
You know,
that was the result of 3 years of work.
correct. Yeah. So they weren't far off of that mark. You know, so that whole thing to me is bullshit. And then, the other part of it on the value part, you know, we were talking about this beforehand. What is the determining factor for value? What is that metric? How is that assessed? What is it based on? Because they sure as hell haven't given that.
Mm-mm.
And from where I sit, I don't see how they wouldn't bring value.
Here's the thing. Their value to F1 is in the United States. They have a massive market for F1 in the United States now. You have a ton of fans in the United States that are new to the sport, so don't really have deep allegiances yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have allegiances, but they don't go back decades or, grew up liking a team because of their dad or whatever. They're brand new to the sport. Maybe they fell into whoever was winning when they liked it. But you give them a real team from the US and they would naturally gravitate towards it.
Oh yeah.
100%. Also, living in the United States, you and I subscribe to just about everything that F1 puts out,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have emails, subscriptions, all this stuff. I didn't get one email, one phone call, one letter. They got all my contact information, F1 does, on, hey, would you support Andretti? Would you purchase merchandise? Would it make you more likely to attend a race? Yes, yes, yes.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
Put it out right now before they're on the grid. I'll buy a t-shirt and a hat.
Yeah. No kidding, huh?
No, probably not. I'm not paying $90 for a hat, but I'll buy a
I'll
t-shirt
buy a t-shirt.
or a
Yeah.
polo.
Mm-hmm. So I've actually already looked for what it's worth. I tried. I was hoping
I
like
know we did it. We talked about that one day.
with all this going on, I was kind of hoping that like they maybe had stuff lined up ready to go, maybe try to put some of it out there kind of quietly, but still put it out there to start generating and use that to show, right? Like, look,
Mm-hmm.
we're not even on the grid yet, and look what our F1 stuff is doing. But
Right.
I guess contractual reasons they probably couldn't do that. I
Right.
tried. I looked for it. I'd have bought it,
I know.
you
I
know.
know.
And yeah, I mean, so between that, they will have the support. They will have a fan base, an immediate fan base.
Mm-hmm. And they'll
You
bring
know,
fans, race fans that have not made it to F1 yet, that are Andretti fans of IndyCar, NASCAR, drag racing, that the Andretti have names all in. New people will find F1 because of them.
so new people, and how many people do you think that were previously F1 fans that they kind of lost touch with the sport, but they see Andretti coming to F1 and now they're like, "Oh, you know what? I remember watching when Michael was racing, or I quit watching F1, but I've always kept up with Andretti. So now I'm going to come back to F1." There's going to be that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like every way we have dissected it, it's like it all makes sense. Why wouldn't they allow them?
Or even if you
You
never
know?
watched F1, like say, dude, I remember when we were kids, we were small kids. The Indy 500 was a massive deal every year, and we never didn't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
When Mario and Michael were running the Kmart cars,
Yep.
there's a ton of people that would strike nostalgia with that maybe haven't watched racing at all, but all of
Yeah.
us like they watched it then, but haven't
Mm-hmm.
watched it since. Once kind of IndyCar had their split and all that nonsense happened,
Yep.
like we all stopped watching it. Um, maybe I'm sure there's a huge group of those people that are just like, oh man, like I remember watching him when I was a kid. Let's check him out
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Michael's going to be the face of it.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, between that and then,
There's so many. We could go
it's,
down a rabbit hole and just keep
yeah,
listing ways that people will find F1 because of Andretti.
correct.
Not to mention,
And
it's
it's not
one of
like
the
they don't
most
have,
famous racing names in the world.
yep, in the world, Craig, not just the city, the world. And it's not like it's obviously any kind of buy-in money, any kind of, anything like that. That's not a problem. So what is this value that they're looking for? Like that's what we need to know.
The only
When
thing I can come up with is I heard this on the race podcast that when the new Concord agreement happens, which I think is 428, which they kind of propositioned or propped them up to where they could actually gain entry. The currently there's a fee that a team has to pay that would essentially cover the dilution that would be taken from the other teams, right?
Mhm.
I think right now it's like 200 million or something like that. In addition to all your entry stuff. This is literally like a anti-dilution fund.
Hmm.
Okay.
So not to cut you off, but just to correct a little bit, not correct, but clarify. The latest Concord agreement will run for a 5-year period from 2021 to 2025.
Right. But I think that right. So it's coming to 25. But when they prop them up to get in 28 where the new agreement would be in effect.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Regardless, yeah, it would still be on a new
And
agreement.
and that anti-dilution fee is supposed to be about 700 million in the next agreement.
Holy shit.
So that could be the only thing. It's just a money grab.
Mhm. And
And
that's very possible. Like
I
the
mean,
the way this shit runs now,
yeah.
it's entirely possible that that's what the reasoning really is, you know. And I don't know, I guess if per the current Concord agreement, if it's 200 million, they can't come to them and be like, "Well, look, we want to let you in, but the 200 million it just isn't going to do it. It's going to have to be 500." I guess they can't do that because honestly, I feel like Andretti would probably do it. But I guess if the Concord agreement says 200, then it's got to be 200, you know? Because it's
I
all about freaking money.
Sure it is. I don't know. We could beat this drum all day that,
Yeah.
you know, especially now, your Haas's of the world. Like if we're gonna hold these spots essentially, there's gonna be 10 spots essentially sacred. Like this new Concord agreement better put more stipulations in there for the teams to live up to.
Hmm.
The teams at the back, you don't have to worry about Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull doing their part to be as competitive as possible. But these teams that are on the back of the grid, year in and year out, there needs to be bottom lines that you have to hit.
Yeah.
You have to spend the cost cap. Y'all wanted the cost cap, y'all got it. Now you
Hmm.
have to spend it.
Yep.
Um, things like that
Yeah. I
in
mean, we
order
could,
to make in order to make this thing work.
Yeah, and we could dive way into a rabbit hole on that, but you're exactly right on that cost cap statement. Those are the teams that were really pushing for it, right? Because that's why we can't be competitive because we can't spend 500-600 million. So we want a cost cap put in place. Okay, they put the cost cap in place. Guess what? You're not going to be competitive regardless because you're still not spending the same amount of money.
Mhm.
Yeah, the front teams are hitting the cost cap. You're still not even hitting that. So
Mhm.
you still can't spend the money that they can. And we know that's what's going to get you to the front. Spend the money. Do the research, the development, hire the right people that are going to cost you more, you know. So yeah, I completely agree.
I can
You
tell you who is
have
gonna
to
do that,
spend,
Andretti.
yeah, you have to spend the cost cap, should be part of it. If you can't meet that, then you have no business being on the grid.
Yeah. Then you're not allowed to be in F1, period.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's,
unfortunately, like, it just is what it is, though. Like,
hmm,
there's no fighting it, there's no it's like, it's done and dusted.
yep.
I mean, I think Andretti could pursue some legal avenues, but at what point, if you truly want entry down the line,
Hmm.
that's a that's a very delicate, very thin ice that you're skating on
Yeah.
as to how far do we go.
Yeah. Because you for sure don't want to burn that bridge
Right,
if your plan is to make another run at it for 28.
right. So I guess we'll leave that one there when Andretti. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot more that we could say about it aside
Yeah.
from we hate it.
Hmm.
Um, so in news that will actually be happening on the grid in the 25 season, Lewis freaking Hamilton is going to Ferrari.
Lewis in red.
I'm not gonna lie, I was shocked. I kind of thought I know he had always kind of in interviews alluded to just like little innuendo of wanting to drive for Ferrari or it would be awesome. He kind of always wanted to, blah, blah, blah. I kind of thought he was past the point of that happening
I think we all did.
to where it was out of my head. I
Yeah.
was I was convinced he was done with the whole rebuild thing and these last 2 years at Mercedes. And he was his body language at the end of the year last year screamed he was done.
Yep.
Maybe it just meant he was done with Mercedes.
Apparently so. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, I think we all thought,
Body language, attitude, everything.
yeah. I mean, we all thought, he was gonna hang it up from Mercedes,
Mhm.
whether that was this year, next year, the year after, you know, with everything he had built with them and everything they had done. I don't think anybody expected to see this.
No.
And
Even all the insiders, man, that cover
yeah.
F1 for a living were floored. Like, nobody caught wind of it early. Like,
Mhm.
that's the even more shocking thing.
There was no rumor mill
There was no
going, there was no
rumor, no
nothing.
leaks, no nothing.
It was just like bam, mic drop.
But how about this? You remember, like, what was it? Maybe 8, 9 months ago? It was in the early part of the season, I think. Everybody chastising Christian Horner for claiming that Lewis's dad was talking to Ferrari,
I do remember that. And
and
I had
everybody was
forgotten
like
about that until you
everybody
just brought that up.
jumped his shit.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. where are they at now? Yep.
So,
So I mean, there's a lot of different things to this, but one thing that we had talked about that might be very, very nice, very refreshing, is we might get some kick-ass merch out of this.
yeah,
So
that's right. I forgot about that. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
I knew you would. So
We
I mean,
talked about
look,
that when we're at we always talk so just to preface this, whenever we go to Coda, me and David always sat there and, like, drooled in front of the Mercedes store because their merch is the sickest.
yeah,
They got color variations, style variations, you name it, like, they got 8, 9, 10 different options.
hmm
Ferrari got, like, one of each.
yeah.
You want a hat? This is the hat you get.
This is the hat. You can get it with 16 or 55, but this is the hat.
Like, this is the shirt, this is the polo, this is the jacket,
Yep.
period. Like,
hmm
one of each thing. What size do you take?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and, just from seeing it over the years, I imagine that that's a very Lewis Hamilton thing.
I would imagine so. And just seeing, look, it's it's always a thing, right? When Lewis shows up to the track, there's always things about what Lewis is wearing, what he showed up in, right? He's in the fashion world, in the designer world, or whatever world you want to call that. So it would make sense to assume that their um their offerings of different things when it comes to all the merch and the designs, like it would make sense to assume that's all stemmed from him.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, back in the day when it was, McLaren Mercedes, I don't I don't recall them being any different from Ferrari, when it came to that. Like it was
That was kind of a different time too, like, I feel like in the time that Lewis was at Mercedes, F1 kinda hit a pretty big transition.
they did. Yeah. Yeah.
Because now
I mean, there's
McLaren's similar. McLaren has a bunch
mhm,
of stuff. They got merchandise out or, for all their different one-off liveries that they do. Like, heck,
yep.
I got that golf livery
Yeah,
McLaren shirt.
we both bought one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah. You got
Yeah.
one too, yeah.
Yep.
Um, so, like but man, the one thing Ferrari did was they offered from 22, they offered when they did the yellow overalls and everything,
Mhm.
they had the yellow polos and T-shirts, but we weren't able to get any of them
No.
because all they had was, like, schmediums.
Yep. Yeah, with the Italian cut.
And
You gotta
FYI
buy a little bit larger size when you're a
FYI,
big old American.
for anybody that, goes to these places or orders merch, keep in mind, these are all European companies. Europeans are small.
Mhm.
A European large is not an American large.
No, it is not. It is not.
It is not the large that you're used to getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both had to go swap our shirts back the next day.
Yeah. What was it from? What it was some movie and he's like, "Oh, you're a big old American."
I don't know. So, alright, the biggest question of Lewis to Ferrari is, if you're Lewis Hamilton, why?
Mhm.
If there's a reason any more than because I always wanted to drive for Ferrari. I
Yeah.
think I think there has to be, no matter what the reason is, like we talked about earlier, no matter what the reason is, one of the reasons has to be whatever is going on in Mercedes is not promising.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, you can take you know, wanting to drive for Ferrari. Everybody wants to drive for Ferrari. But if you are in a championship winning car, or it's looking like you might have that opportunity, then you're not going to give that up to make a move like that. You
Right.
know, because there's no guarantee that Ferrari is going to have a championship worthy car. There's a lot of signs that point to it being very competitive and the possibility being very good that it's up there fighting, but it's not guaranteed. However, the car you're in, obviously, there's something that and it's not looking good, because otherwise, why would you give up the possibility of a team that you've been with for this long, that you've built with, in a car that in a whole system that has basically operated around you? Why would you give that up unless the possibility of you fighting up at the front was damn near zero?
Not necessarily fighting up at the front, but actually competing for a championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, technically, we could say that they still kind of been fighting at the front.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. You're right. Um, so yeah, there's got to be, I think, maybe a multitude of things. Maybe, one, clearly the car is not looking promising. I think that's number one. First and foremost, I think that's what it says. But also, is there more on the back end that we don't see, that doesn't get publicized? You know, digging a little deeper into the team, are there other things going on that Lewis isn't happy with, decisions that are being made, or people in certain places? Just like, is there more to it than just the car?
I think that's a very real possibility. Um, I think that something something had to happen because previously you kind of you've always heard about like Lewis and Toto having these like talks, right? Like these just talks and talks and talks and like negotiations, but it's talks. It's more just like career talk.
Hmm.
And you kind of hammer out what the next year or two looks like, and then we ink it in. And that didn't happen.
No.
He informed Toto that he was leaving. It wasn't like a decision like, I talked with Toto, we went back and forth, and it's just what I feel I need to do right now.
Hmm.
He made it completely separate, which just felt like that thing that they had wasn't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's hard to put into words from the outside a relationship like that, right? Like a coach and a player, or you know team principal driver. But just because like in Formula One you don't get those relationships that last that long very often at all,
Hmm.
and especially ones that are that successful. Well,
Right.
obviously like none are that successful, but um it's just something that doesn't you don't see very much in this sport.
Hmm.
So with all the new media and TV coverage and Netflix and documentaries and all, you get so much insight to that relationship, which we've never had before, even in the ones that existed.
Right.
And you really got to see like Toto and Lewis were tight, man. Like they discussed everything. They were always up front on the table, like what's going on, where are we at, how do we move forward, this and that. And so, like, for this to happen in this way, this early, like, it's not even silly season. It's supposed to be silly season yet.
Mm-hmm.
For it to happen this early tells me that there's a rift that happened somewhere. I don't know when. I would imagine at some point last year.
Yeah,
And
like something just still isn't sitting right, and yeah.
dude, I'm gonna be honest, man. I'd be willing to bet that he made up his mind last year. So at some point last year, because think about the like Lewis Hamilton, the amount of money he makes, which we'll get to what it's rumored to be he'll be making at Ferrari. Have you heard?
I have not. No, I hadn't seen it.
Oh, okay, well, don't look it up. I'm fixing to tell you.
Okay, I was
Um,
about to look it up.
um, but anyway, I mean, he's been the highest paid driver up until Max got past him in the last year or two.
Mhm.
Um, but the sponsorship deals, like all the things that he has with Mercedes, like I can imagine his contract not being the sort of thing that could be hammered out in a day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I, I'm I'm fairly confident that this has probably been in the works for a while.
I'm
Hence the
sure.
reason,
Yeah.
and I'd be willing to bet that initially, um, uh, like they didn't want to give Signs the 2-year deal. They wanted to offer him a 1+1. So they essentially they didn't want to give him a 3-year deal, 2 guaranteed.
Mhm.
Because I think all parties involved were thinking 26 for this. And then all of a sudden, Signs is pushing to get this deal done, but Ferrari knows he's going to have other suitors for 25 because that's when his contract is done.
Mhm.
Lewis can kind of go year to year at this point with Mercedes.
Yeah.
That's what he's been doing for a little bit anyway. Um, I'd be willing to bet like they kind of had this all ready to roll, and then Ferrari was like, "Hey, what if we did it in 25?"
Yeah. It very well could have been that was already the play. Uh, but I think you're entirely right. I mean, this definitely was not a Lewis didn't call up Fred and be like, "Hey, I want to come drive for you. Like I'm ready to leave Mercedes. Let's sit down tomorrow night and we'll figure this out." Like it's it's
Right.
definitely not that kind of thing. You know, it's been in the works, and the fact that they were able to keep it as quiet as it was
That's
is
shocking.
astounding, given the world we live in today, where and especially with F1, everywhere they go, there's a mic, there's a phone, there's something recording.
Bro, they got people that just sit there and watch flight trackers.
Right? Hmm.
Like,
Like,
oh
oh,
man,
Lewis took a flight to
not even
Italy.
not even
You
Lewis.
know,
Like a flight went from the UK to Maranello or Milan, UK to Milan.
yeah. Hmm.
It's like that's how rumors start. Like you see it all the time in college football about coaches. When there's a when there's a opening at a college, like a couple years ago we had LSU job opening, right? And everybody's trying to figure out who's going to be the next coach. And there's literally people that just sit there and stalk the freaking flight logs and are like, "Oh, flight from Norman, Oklahoma to Baton Rouge. Lincoln Riley's going to be the next coach of LSU. Mark it down, write it in ink, And it's like, nope, that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But like, dude, the rumors go crazy
Yeah.
off of that. And there was nothing.
Not a word. Other than the one thing about Lewis's dad talking to Ferrari, which
Yeah.
may or may not have had anything to do with this at all. But other than that, there has been nothing.
But the one thing that I'll say that can kind of keep everything inconspicuous, the one outlier that I never really thought of until just now is Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
Because the majority of F1 drivers live in Monaco.
Yep.
I would imagine the majority of agents or managers for F1 drivers live there as well. So it would raise no eyebrows if any random team principal was seen on the streets in Monaco.
Correct.
It's also not, it's a place that's just littered with celebrities.
Yeah.
So people over there on a day-to-day basis don't freak out when they see X racing driver or Y team principal or whatever. Like,
It's just
yeah,
another
yeah,
day over
like
there.
some of them might get excited. Oh my God, there's Fred Vasseur or there's Toto Wolff or whatever. But it's not like, hey, what the hell is Fred doing here? Who's he coming? Let's follow him. Let's see whose apartment he goes to.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
No,
like
you're right. Yeah.
it's kind of like the perfect cover.
Mm-hmm.
Um right. I guess like first thing about this is I I think it's a absolutely savage move by Ferrari. I think it's something that people forget this is what they do. For the longest time, all they wanted to hire to drive their cars was world champions. You know, um, I mean, Felipe Massa, he just kind of paid his dues long enough for them where he wound up getting that seat
Mm-hmm.
when Michael retired. But they filled the other seat with Kimi. Um, but that was always their thing. They wanted experience. They didn't. Charles Leclerc broke the mold. Like Charles Leclerc is the outlier for what Ferrari hires as a driver.
Yes.
They don't take chances on young kids. They have always been about, hey, who is the best guy available on the grid? Does he have world titles? Yes, let's go get him. Turns out they might have been the only one that knew he was available,
Mm-hmm.
but it was shocking, but it shouldn't be surprising, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I see a lot of people that are saying, this is doomsday for Charles. I hard disagree with that.
Yeah. I don't see that as the case.
For one, I think Charles is an absolute savage. I think he'll do just fine against Lewis. Um, I think he'll be able to learn an immense amount from Lewis in terms of the little intangible things. Um, and I think he'll be in a better place I think Lewis will be like everybody says like that he had that opportunity to learn from Seb, which I disagree with because at the time Charles was the young kid coming in that everybody knew was going to replace Seb. So there was fences up, and that like Seb was fighting for his job. Seb was fighting for his role in that team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's not going to be a power struggle at all between Charles and Lewis, but make no mistake, like Ferrari is Charles Leclerc's right now.
Yep. And
So,
they've made that very clear.
but also what I mean is like Lewis is coming into Charles's team, but he's also he knows this is the last stop of his career. When Charles showed up in Ferrari, I don't think Seb was there in his mind yet
Mm-hmm.
that he was, kind of on that final chapter.
On that, yeah.
I don't think he
Yep.
had an idea for it yet. And I think it shocked him how fast Charles was.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, so I feel like the dynamic between the two of them, Lewis and Charles, will be much different than it was between Seb and Charles.
I
I
think it
think
will.
I think you'll see a lot of and I think this is one of the things that if you're Ferrari, you have to one of the reasons why you would want to sign Lewis is to I'm not saying like I'm not insinuating that like Lewis needs to roll over to Charles by any means, but like there's not going to be this brick wall in between the garage. Like work together, help
Mm-hmm.
him, if there's this little nugget that you can pass to him, do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think Lewis doesn't strike me as the kind of person at this point to be like screw him.
Yeah. I don't see that happening at all. Um, you know, a lot of times you'll get that when it is, the Seb and Charles thing, right? Seb was already there. He's the veteran. He's the world champion. Young Charles coming in, and it's the same thing that we see in the HVAC trade. You see it in plumbing trade, right? The old cats don't want to teach the young kids because it's like, why am I going to teach you how to take my job?
Mhm.
You know, we don't have that here. With Lewis going in there, I do believe it's going to be a very different dynamic. I don't think, you know, I don't think you'll see any kind of turmoil. I think they'll race well together. I think they'll play well together. I think they'll, work together for the team
Mhm.
well. And if they don't, Ferrari will put a stop to it real quick. You
So
know,
what this does is and this goes back to something that we talk about, we reference often is all of us, everybody outside of F1 cares about the drivers championship. Everybody inside of F1 in the teams care about the constructors.
yep.
How you have your team structured says a lot about what you want, what your main objectives are. You have the two best possible guys that you could possibly get like two alphas, you're out for constructors.
Yep.
You have a clear cut number one and a clear cut number two. That's the main thing that will do is secure the drivers.
Hmm.
So I think that shows you where Ferrari's head's at and what its intentions are. And I also think one thing that we saw last year, over the last 2 years, and Imma say this, but it's not. I love Carlos to death. I think he's great. I think he's a phenomenal driver. I think the one knock is the same that we knock Checo for all the time. Now, it's not nearly as extreme as Checo, but it's the same thing in that as the car gets better and faster, he tends to fall away a little bit from it. You start to see a little more of those inconsistencies and just like he's not as dialed in.
Hmm. Yeah, and that wasn't really something we had kind of looked at and talked about and discussed previously up until kind of all this happened, and start looking into why, or you know what are the benefits here, what was the reasoning. And you had brought that up, and thinking about it and looking at it, it's not wrong. It's, and like you said, it's not to the level of what we've seen with Checo, but yeah, I mean, it
It's those
you
fine
can't deny
lines,
that
man.
it's not there.
Like, that's the whole reason why they didn't want to do a multi-year deal with him, was because they wanted the 1+1. So you guarantee 1 year if you can prove that you can sustain, like, you can't have that. Think about the his last third of the season when the car actually got better, if that's a title fight,
Hmm.
that was for P they should have Ferrari should have easily had P2 in the constructors last year.
Hmm. Yep.
Charles did all of the back end work by himself. And you can't have that. It's one thing if you take a wrong development path and the car falls off a cliff and you're all over the place, and like that's understandable. But the car was getting better, and all of a sudden your form falls.
Yep.
That's a silver bullet to not getting renewed, man.
Yeah, no doubt, especially knowing that the goal is the constructors.
Right.
As far as the team is concerned, you know, it's not about getting one driver the drivers championship. It's about the constructors. And in order to take that crown, both cars have to be performing equally,
Mhm.
give or take, a little bit maybe, but more or less have to be performing at equal levels.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing that I hold Lewis in highest regard, for me personally, is his ability to be consistent. I'm not even talking race after race. I'm talking year over year over year over year over year.
Hmm.
I mean, like the amount the amount of times that he has just made a mistake and thrown it, like, and cost him a race, like made a mistake and like that translated to a DNF just on his own, bro. I mean, you could probably count on one hand.
Hmm. Yep.
I mean, granted, look, I'm not saying like he hasn't made any mistakes, but I'm talking about like just ones where he just brain farts it and sends it.
Yeah.
Like they don't happen very often.
No. Yeah.
And
And
to be able to do that at the level that he held it at for so many years is just like utterly impressive, man.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's one of those things. I mean, like him or not, fan of him or not, there's no arguing that fact.
You know,
He has absolutely done that.
that's one of the things that, like, if you talk to any of the greats, if you go listen to any like interviews of any greats in any sport, that's the thing that they say is the most difficult. Like, because obviously, like once you get to a certain level of talent in your respective sport, you're there, right? So then it becomes the other things that you need to keep it together. You know, keeping control of your situation, however, whatever your team dynamic is. Obviously, all that needs to function. But once you start winning multiple times, that drive to continue doing what it takes at that same level every year, every year, every year, every year.
Yeah,
They
never
say
never getting complacent and just yeah.
they say that is the absolute hardest thing to do because it's draining.
Mhm.
Like you look at these guys, um, the I'm trying to remember the year, but anyway, the Edmonton Oilers, right? They talk about I'm really going deep on you. I know you have no idea about any of this.
No.
So the New York Islanders hockey team, I forget the year, I forget the exact years, but 70s, 80s, they won 5 or 6 championships in a row. All right, Stanley Cup championships. It was an insane run. Might have been 5. I don't exactly remember, but it was staggering. Like the run that they made was ridiculous, having like barely lost a game throughout the playoff series and all these series year after year after year. And then it was in the 80s. And then Wayne Gretzky is a youngin playing for the Edmonton Oilers, right? And they played a couple times towards the end of the Islanders' run, and they beat them. The Islanders beat Gretzky and the Oilers, okay? And the last year that they beat them, Gretzky walked by their locker room after they won the Stanley Cup, and he looked in there and he said there was no celebrate. There wasn't a lot of celebrating. He said, people were popping beers and stuff. He said, but they were all literally slumped over, exhausted, exhausted, left everything out on ice. And he said that's when it clicked. He's like, that's how you win every year, year after year after year. You put every freaking thing you have into it, like bar none.
Mhm.
And he said that changed him. And then the Oilers go on the next year to beat the Islanders. And Gretzky said, had I not seen that moment, I don't know if we even have our run, because then the Oilers had their run with Gretzky and went on to win consecutive championships and all. But it's like it's those little things that you hear, man. Like the greats, man. There's just those little things. Like there's zero let up. Like when you're done at the end of the season, it's like you want to celebrate. Maybe you just celebrate off the adrenaline, but it's like you just crash because there's nothing left.
Yeah. Everything got left out of there.
And that's what is just so impressive about Lewis, man.
Mhm. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know your whole like memory bank and sports knowledge is pretty crazy, but I didn't know you knew the first thing about hockey. Nor did I know that the statistical memory bank was there for hockey. I was impressed there, I'm not gonna lie. Like it 1976 Super Bowl, who won?
I don't remember.
Oh shit. Well, all right. I was
I
gonna
used to
show
know
off there a
all
little
that.
bit.
I used to know all that. I'll do a guess. Steelers.
All right, well, hang on. Let me fact check this real quick. Come on, just all right. It was the Steelers. Yep.
I don't know if you remember this or not. When we were kids, I had a placemat that had every Super Bowl on it.
I do now that you say that.
And I had that thing
I
memorized.
do. Yeah. Mhm.
When I was Finn's age, I could have told you who won any Super Bowl and the score in the year.
It's impressive. I don't I don't I don't have enough capacity left. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I'm a little shady on the years of the hockey stuff, but it was in the early '80s, early
Yeah.
to mid '80s.
So,
Um,
all right. Well, coming back to F1. Um, so who who do you like or think that Mercedes will fill that seat with? Because they've got a lot of options, and Toto has said they are not in a rush. They're not going to make any rash decisions. There's been times before where they've been a little bit under the gun to make decisions, which usually worked out anyway. But he's made it very clear they're not in any rush.
so honestly, I have no idea because of the fact that there is so many available drivers at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who they hire, I think will tell you a lot about what they think of George.
Yeah.
I think that if here's what I would like to see. I would like to see them do one of two things. Number one, I would love to see them promote Kimi Antonelli. I think that's how you say his last name, Antonelli.
I
Th-
think so. Yeah.
This kid looks to be an absolute stud, and I'd love to just see them bring him right in. Let him get his feet wet in 25. It's the last year of regulation, and then hit the ground running in 26. Why even
Mm-hmm.
why even like dick around with him going to Williams for a year or this or that? Get him in your system for that 1 year where, like, let's be honest, you're not gonna chances are where they're at right now, you're not gonna catch Red Bull by the 25 season. So get him in there and let him iron
Let.
out all the bugs. Get to know your system, your people, to where 26, man, you're ready to roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's a very very strong contender, I think. And because one other thing Toto has said was, and I don't remember the exact wording, but something along the lines of like, maybe this is the time to do something bold. And does that
Well,
mean, huh?
bold could mean something else.
It very well could, but you
There's
know,
only one other thing that bold can mean.
who are you hinting at for that?
I wish I had the Supermax song queued up.
Oh, you're talking about, okay, yeah. So I mean,
That honestly, if I'm Mercedes, and I think we feel like they have a lot of faith in George.
Mhm.
If I'm Mercedes, I am 100% trying to get Max Verstappen. I think it would be negligent of you not to.
Sure.
Um, if that doesn't work, I'm going with Kimi.
Mhm.
Plain and simple. I don't see any other driver on the grid that I I, I don't see any. I don't like anybody else for the seat really. Like nobody else jumps out and is like, that's the dude you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not 100% sold on George either. And
Mhm.
I think you have the chance to get this potential superstar in right on the back of Lewis leaving, and George is at least good enough. Who knows? George might wind up being great, but I think the jury's still out on him.
Mhm.
But if you've got a chance to get this other superstar, do it. Get him in your car, and if George works out, George works out. If not, if they both work out, then guess what? You've got this age offset that works.
Yep.
If if George doesn't wind up working out, well, guess what? You already got your stud
Yeah.
in
You
the
got
team, and then you can go hire whoever you want because it doesn't matter.
Mhm. You've already got the up and coming young gun,
Right.
you know. Cuz I mean there's the obvious, rumors floating around of signs going over there and it just being a trade. There was rumors, which and it seemed like a viable option of Albon, but Albon has confirmed that he plans on staying at Williams, so he's already kind of put those rumors to bed.
Well, I think
His
he is
his
his contract is through 25.
through 25, but
I think there's a
given
buyout.
the Williams Mercedes relationship and James Voles, I'm sure if they wanted to pull him up, I'm sure it could be done. But he's put that to bed. He said he plans on staying. So there goes that one.
I think that's stupid.
There's the there's always the possibility of Mick coming in from being a reserve driver, which I don't see it as a high probability, but it's one that's there.
Look, here's the thing. If you wind up seeing Mick get that seat, I think that's a holdover.
Hmm.
That's all it's gonna be. Like,
Yeah.
we don't wanna sign anybody else to a long-term deal. We need somebody for a year
Hmm.
until this guy can come in here, whoever they have their eye on. Maybe
Sure.
they don't want Antonelli coming in his first year in Mercedes.
Right. Maybe they want to put him as the reserve driver in 25 with the plans of pulling him for 26.
Or maybe
You
for
know.
whatever reason, they want him in a back marker team
Right.
for a
Right.
year, where you can learn to race the misfits on somebody
Hmm.
else's dollar.
Yeah. Right.
Um, whatever it may be, if Mick were to get that seat, I think that's the only way it happens is it's because it has to be a holdover year.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's probably the case. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I don't think we'll know anything on that front for quite a while now.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I don't know, man. It's like it's coaches speak. Oh, we're
Hmm.
not in any rush. We're not in any rush. This and that, whatever. Like that. That's kind of a bogus thing to say.
Mhm.
Like, you can say, like, "We're not gonna make any rash decisions," but there's gotta be some kind of sense of urgency because of the amount of seats that are gonna be open next year. Like, now, Lewis making this move and Ferrari being set, all these other teams and people are gonna start getting antsy. Moves are gonna start happening.
Yep.
So, you're gonna have to move somewhat quickly to make sure you have the pick of the litter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are gonna secure their future over just waiting, "Hey, man, like, we got a shot at Mercedes, but, you know, here's a 3-year deal on the table right now."
Mhm. Yep.
Like, what and at maybe 3 years ago, you're like, "No, we're gonna wait for Mercedes." But now you're like,
Mm.
"Give me that freaking 3-year deal.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll take it."
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean the last thing, you know, the last thing you want to do is get caught with your pants down if you're Mercedes,
Right.
because you were, not in any rush, and now anybody that you had hopes for is already signed somewhere. So now you do have to make that rash decision quickly, you know?
What I do think I think that they need to, before they hire somebody, and this is what I think Toto probably meant by that, is, "Okay, this was kinda sprung on us. We need to evaluate what our next 3 years look like and what our actual realistic ambitions are for those years."
Mhm.
So, do we think we're gonna be competitive in 25? Or do we think we're gonna be roughly in the same spot we are now, maybe a little bit better? Okay, so if that's the case, then do we shut down development at some point early on in 25 and just lock in on 26?
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and
I
that changes what you're looking for in a driver very
exactly,
much.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but if you're still like this year and last year, their driver pairing is what got them P2 in the constructors
Mhm.
because of their consistency, because of how good they just delivered every week. Obviously there were some highs and lows, but for them compared to everybody else, they did a better job of just getting what the car had.
Yep.
Um, so if that's not going to be a thing in 25 because you're not going to develop the car, then you definitely go get your rookie.
Yeah. For sure.
But if it's something like, hey, look, the board says we got to keep developing the whole time, we got to compete, we got to push all the way through. Well,
You need a solid.
you need to get a solid proven driver in there
Yep.
that can deliver points.
Mhm.
I just don't know. This kid looks like a stud, man. Like I don't know why how you would make him wait like you did to George. I don't think that can happen.
Mhm.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
It doesn't sound like it, but
But like I don't know what other top driver that would be available you could go get that's gonna sign a short-term deal.
mhm.
So like you really gotta they gotta have honest conversations with themselves and figure out their direction, and that's gonna dictate who they sign.
Yep. Yeah. Unless you do a all right, Antonelli, we're gonna put you in a Williams for a year, and Seb is going to come drive for us to hold us over on this 25-year.
Bruh. I've heard so much of that.
Oh, I know.
I hear
Yeah.
so many rumors about Alonso going there. And
I don't see it happening.
dude, I think that would be
Like
a
that.
horrible move by Mercedes.
Yeah. Yep. I
He's
think
just
that'd be bad for George. It'd be bad for Mercedes. I don't think it'd be good for Alonso either.
bro, like he's an exceptional talent, man, but he is not
He's a horrible teammate.
proven to be a good teammate, player, like anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If things are good, yeah. He's a delight to be around.
Better keep him that way.
I know. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess a lot of this question will be determined by what happens with our next huge news topic.
Yep. Why don't you go ahead and lead us into that one?
So, trying to think. I thought you were going to lead in. I was trying. So let me think
Maybe I was.
of a way to put this. Christian Horner is being investigated by Red Bull for potential misconduct and what's the term they used?
It was quoted as inappropriate controlling behavior.
Yes. So today's Saturday. They had a hearing yesterday on Friday. Supposedly it lasted about 8 hours long. Horner, his lawyers, Red Bull's investigation team, which is
And
the third party team.
this third party
Yeah.
barrister, they keep calling it.
Yeah. Which is essentially a group of lawyers.
Yeah.
They had about an 8 hour long meeting yesterday. We still really don't have any information.
Nope.
So we're not going to sit here and pick apart what is what about any allegation because we don't even know. It's all kind of just leaked speculation as to what it even is. So we won't comment any further on it until we have like black and white, like this is exactly what it is. However, what we can comment on is the ramifications of all of the possibilities.
Yeah. Which there will be ramifications, and they will be seen however this plays out. Whether Horner stays, Horner goes, whatever the end result is, you will see it one way or another, and of course to varying degrees, but this will be seen during this next year, next few years. You know, who knows, but it will be seen.
So the one thing that this says is that this juggernaut that we have witnessed take shape over the last, we'll call it 3 years. That we kind of felt like was humming along and there was nothing that could derail it. Turns out we were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that no other team could derail it.
Yeah. Just had to be done from within.
Yeah. Which is usually how all the big ones go down.
Yeah.
Um, man, I don't like this, but I can't see it not even if Horner it's widely speculated that Horner's not gonna keep his job.
Hmm.
Um, so with that being said, I just wanna visit quickly if he does stay in place and this is whatever they decide, he keeps his job, this was an exaggeration, whatever. Um, I still feel like this has put certain rifts in relationships inside of Red Bull because Red Bull instigated this investigation. Not Red Bull Racing, Red Bull.
Yeah.
It's 2 separate deals.
Red Bull corporate.
Yeah. So what this could be teeing up is a power struggle between the new ownership and the old guard that had been in place for years and years and years. And as far as Dietrich was concerned, he Red Bull Racing probably kinda just had autonomy to do whatever the hell they wanted.
Hmm.
Didn't have to answer to anybody except for Dietrich, and he was probably like, "Good, good, good." Um, obviously, once they got to a certain point where they won 4 consecutive titles, you kind of earn that right.
Yeah.
So, I would imagine that in his passing, the new regime probably there somewhere in there, there's probably some resentment for the racing side.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, there could have even been like pissing matches going on beforehand between some of the top guys at Red Bull Racing and the number 2 or number 3 at Red Bull. Who's got more clout? The number 1 at Red Bull Racing or the number 3 at Red Bull?
Hmm.
So like all these little things that as long as Dietrich was there, they never mattered. Now that he's not, it's a whole different ball game. So let's say this whatever this investigation turns up isn't enough to cost Christian his job. I think what we're seeing is still going to damage that fine-tuned machine that we've been seeing run the last couple years.
Oh, without a doubt. 'Cause I
You're
mean, if you
gonna
think
see
about it,
yeah.
I mean, let's yeah, on the he keeps his job. Well, the way that he has run things to build what he has built, I'm sure I'm sure he is demanding. I'm sure there are super high expectations. You know, you don't build what he's built as the CEO of Red Bull Racing, right? Not only is he the team principal of the F1 team, but he's the CEO of Red Bull Racing who does all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
You don't build what they have now by just being a doormat, by, just being of a, oh, yeah, that's fine, whatever. You didn't hit that deadline. That's fine. Why don't you get it tomorrow? You don't, you don't get there by being like that. So I'm sure at times, yeah, maybe he was a little difficult. Maybe he was demanding. But with
Maybe
this
he
now,
yelled.
yeah, right.
Maybe
With
he
this
cursed.
now happening, if he stays, you have to assume that he is going to be told you have to change your management style. Or even if he's not told, now you've opened the door and the whole you're on pins and needles because the next time something goes wrong, a deadline's not met, whatever it may be, in the back of his head, he's like, okay, I remember what happened last time. Now I'm sure everybody's just itching for me to say something wrong so they can have their shot, you know? Like, and it's gonna derail all sorts of stuff because you're not going to be able to continue operating the same way that you were that has gotten you to this point. You're gonna have to change it,
Mhm.
whether it's out of fear or out of an ultimatum from above. One way or another, it's going to change and it's gonna cause problems.
And it just it throws a kink in that just what appeared to be just this seamless butter-like operation,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like, it just looked like everybody was on the same page, pulling in the same direction, when I mean, like, even the thing which I'm sure every team could do it, but nobody else did, where they filmed a pit stop with the whole team blindfolded.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, and it was like 2 flat or 1.9.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, come on. I mean, like that's like a perfect example of what everybody thought that operation was. Like, it was just so finely tuned from
Mm-hmm.
top to bottom.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And look, I never felt like it was like this happy-go-lucky place to work, because any place that runs like that at the high like that is that successful, that good, at the highest level of the pinnacle of whatever sport it is, guess what? The dude at the top is maniacal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pull your weight and you do your job well, you don't have anything to worry about. You'll get along great, but don't slack. Like, it's this isn't a 40-hour a week job.
Yeah.
And it this is weird to say, so don't take this the wrong way. But if he does lose his job, I hope it was for something more than what it sounds like he's being accused of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Because, bro, like, you ever watch the show Hard Knocks?
Mm-mm.
Football coaches MF everybody
Oh yeah.
all day, all night, every meeting. Like, that's literally what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's like something as far as like people don't like the way that he talks to them, dude, get over it.
Yeah. Like
Like, I'm sorry.
did somebody get all up in their feelings
I
because
just, man, I
they
can't.
weren't doing their job and they got yelled at for it?
And I said we weren't going to comment on that, but man, it's like Jesus. I would. It would make me sick if he lost his job because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
when you see like every single high level operation, like they have, it's demanding, bro, and it's not for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a demanding job.
Yep.
And it's something that you have to look at as more than a job for it to work. It's your life,
Yeah.
because that's what you have to dedicate to it. It's not get there at 9, be home for dinner at 5:30 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, you remember a few years ago, 2018, 2019, Patty Lowe, legend in the sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thought he had things on cruise control, fucked around, and was late on deadlines for Williams. And guess what? He got chewed up, cussed out, and fired.
Yep. Fucked around and found out.
That's right. I like the chart. The more you fuck around,
the more you'll find out.
I mean, so it could be like you don't hear of a ton of turnover from Red Bull.
Mm-mm.
So it could be like, look, this isn't a threatening your job thing. This is a take your ass chewing, learn from it, and continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like they could just go like Ferrari, where we're not going to curse you out. You're fired.
You're fine. Yeah. There's the door. See you.
Yeah. See you. Also,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to deport you from Italy. You let down.
You let down an entire country. Yep. Yeah. So now, on the flip side
That was the
of
short
that,
answer.
yeah, yeah. On the flip side,
Because if the
if
other thing happens,
if this is the demise of Christian Horner at Red Bull, if this if that domino does fall, dude, everything falls.
so
Because if he's gone, then
I think all of a sudden 24 is wide open.
yeah, if he's gone, what does that mean for Max? What does that mean for Adrian Newey? What does that mean for Adrian Newey's number 2, who
What's his name?
regardless is
Forgetting.
already speculated to be going to Ferrari anyway, so may not really change anything for him. But
I think it definitely might speed up the process.
it very well could, And does that mean that Newey's going with? Oh, one thing, I'm going to switch back a gear real quick. We're going to downshift back to second gear. One thing we didn't talk about with Lewis that I wanted to mention, I forgot to, and it just triggered in my head.
Mid
Lewis goes
thought,
to Ferrari, huh?
mid sentence, it triggered in your head.
Yeah, because of what I was about to say about Adrian.
Uh,
Lewis goes to Ferrari. Does that mean Bono goes to Ferrari?
so
And what does that mean for Ferrari?
I read the other day that a lot of the people like at the top of Mercedes, there's like, and I don't know how true this is. I just read an article about it that they have like um clauses that don't allow them to follow Lewis immediately if he leaves.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
take that for what it's worth. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how true
Yeah.
that is,
Right. Right.
but like people like Bono and a few of the other key engineers,
Mm-hmm.
I forget what they called it, like non-trail clauses or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. But all right. Well, anyway, that was something I at least wanted to throw out there. I wanted to do it earlier and forgot about it. But and what triggered remembering that was so Newey's number 2, whose name is Pierre Wache. I'm not sure how you're actually supposed to say it, but he's already lined up looking like he's going to Ferrari. If Horner is gone, does that mean that Newey ends up at Ferrari? Or does Adrian Newey say, you know what? I think I'm gonna just hang it up. It's been a good run, Or does he feel like he wants to start over somewhere else and go over to Ferrari and build, you know?
So, originally I thought that if it all hits the fan, that Newey would probably just retire. But then I thought he's said multiple times, and he's been very close multiple times to going to work for Ferrari, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's always been a bucket list thing for him.
Yeah.
So this would kind of time perfect for him to go to Ferrari and then literally just get them lined up. Even if say he only wanted to work for 2 more years, maybe, like, his plan for Red Bull before all this came out was like, "All right, I got 2 more years in me. Imma get us across the like, we're gonna 25, we're gonna develop the new car. For 26, we'll I'll stay a year to aid in a development, then I'm retiring."
Mhm.
Maybe he just does that for Ferrari,
Yeah.
for the new regs.
Mhm.
Um, but I have no idea.
Right.
I could see that being like timeline wise, I could see it kind of working out perfect
Mhm.
because you're not at a point yet where you can start developing that car for the new rule set.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not like he would be leaving and not be allowed to take any of this work that he's done so far.
Right.
So it would kind of work out perfectly.
Mhm. That it would.
And I think he's also expressed interest in working with Lewis as well.
Well, and there you
So I
go.
mean,
2 birds, 1 stone.
yeah.
Yep. So so that would be huge to a downfall of Red Bull if Horner's out,
If Horner
if
leaves, man,
Newey,
the whole thing
you
falls
know,
apart.
right. Newey leaves, his number 2 leaves. I don't think you see Max sticking around to ride that one out.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, bro, I don't see Max sticking around when it's just imploding.
Mhm.
Like, he's not gonna be at this point in his career, he's not gonna be a part of that.
Right.
So that's why I think if I'm Toto, I'm already on the phone with Max's agent. Like, hey, I don't know what's gonna happen with Christian, but the day that they announce he's fired or he resigns, you call me and we're talking about Max.
Yeah. Mhm.
And just give me your number and we'll
Right.
fax over the paperwork.
Pretty much. Yeah. If I'm Toto, absolutely.
If he's got
Yeah.
any questions, you tell him to let me know
Yes.
when and where. I'll be there in person to answer anything he's got for him and his daddy. And
If
I
he's
can
got
even
any questions, you tell him the answer is yes. Just go ahead and tell him.
I can even bring oh what shoot George in the back. Okay, he can, would he like to do it? I can arrange it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you do whatever it takes
Mhm.
if it's on the table.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean,
And I think that's the only way Max does it.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, man,
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, you
the
gotta put this up there.
the downward spiral that this could create will be huge.
Go
And
look on
man,
your Instagram. I sent you a post earlier. It's about the whistleblower for this Christian Horner thing.
yeah, let's see. Oh, that's funny.
I don't know if we can. I wish we could put it up here.
I can. Hang on, give me a second.
I thought that was hilarious.
Let's see. Oh, come on. All right, do it this way. Did it not? Why didn't it? There we go. All right. There it is. So what you can't see at the top because the overlay banner cuts it off. It says the allegation made against Christian Horner, Red Bull Racing team principal, is based on his aggressive management style. And then, which I think can be seen, note the employee who made the complaint has worn a mask to protect their identity.
And the picture of said employee in the mask.
Yeah,
Freaking
that's
hilarious.
that's pretty good. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you're wondering what that is, you'll just have to go check out the YouTube feed to see it.
Yeah, it'll be about the hour and 42-minute mark.
Yep.
It's a good one. But
So,
no, I
yeah,
do think no matter what, this is not good for Red Bull.
yeah.
And it's at a terrible point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the season so supposedly word out of this conference that they had Friday is that they could have this could take up to 3 weeks before we know if Horner still has his job or not.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, in 3 weeks, I'm pretty sure we'll over 3 to 4 weeks, we'll already had the first race. Testing will at least be done.
Let's
What
see.
race is Bahrain? I mean, what day?
Yeah,
I thought it was the end of February this
end
year.
of February. Yeah, 29th.
Yeah.
So,
So that's just crazy.
yeah.
Even still, like, so I think they talk about Jonathan Wheatley possibly taking, like, he would be in succession to take over.
Mm-hmm.
But, dude, that's no time to assume that role
No.
and keep everything rolling. Like, if you had a year where you knew, like, all right, Christian's going to retire and you're going to take over next year, you can get things in line to where, you've been working there for so long. Like, it's a
That's a
pretty
viable
seamless, it's a
amount of
pretty,
time to,
yeah, it's a pretty seamless transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you kind of can implement some of your own things, but just to keep the wheels on, you don't change a whole lot right off the bat. But like you plan for all these things would be like accounted for and planned for.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you started prepping right now,
That's
that's
still,
nothing. That's
yeah.
nothing.
You've got, what do we have? A week and a half till testing?
Yeah.
10 days? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's gonna be it's gonna be a big, big blow for the season if this is the way it plays out if Christian is gone.
I read a report today that Adrian Newey said he thought he feels like they were too conservative with the RB20.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So he's nervous about it
Interesting.
because he feels like they were too conservative because it's the third iteration of the RB18.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of the same car, effectively.
Right. Interesting.
I don't know. I feel like he said something like that last year,
He's probably said it every year.
but
I mean, it's the thing you're supposed to say, right?
right.
You're not supposed to come out and be like, "Oh, we're gonna mop the floor with him this year."
Right? Even though maybe you're saying it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But
The PR team doesn't like when you come out and say things like that.
you're right. Yeah. um but yeah, man, hey, if nothing else, maybe Christian doesn't lose his job, but it puts just enough of a riff in there to where we have a super competitive year.
Mm-hmm. That's always a possibility. I
But
mean, I think if he keeps his job, I think that's what we see. If he doesn't, I think we see a massive downfall within a very short period of time. Maybe not immediately,
that's what I was thinking
but I think very quickly.
because I mean, at this point, you're gonna start the season where you were gonna start the season.
Right.
So if your car is like, I feel like they should be ahead of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if your car's there already, like that's just what it's gonna be. You might
Yep.
win 2, 3, 4 races
Mm-hmm.
out of the first 6.
Yep.
Um, but it's when that development starts to need to come, and
Yeah.
when you need those snap decisions that only a team principal can make, or whatever it may be, the things that nobody else had to think of before because Christian had it handled.
Yep.
Because he's been doing it for so long, it's just natural. He just does it. It's just done. Nobody
Yeah.
else had to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then you start getting people second guessing. Oh, I would have done it because if it didn't work the first time something doesn't work, you got somebody else in there. Oh, I'd have done it like this, or Christian would have done it like this. This is how
Right.
Christian would have done it.
Yep.
You know that, but you want it to be different.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. The ripple effect will be massive.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, we're sitting here in the whims, but man, like this has the potential to be like just flip F1 on its head.
Yep.
So I don't know. You got anything else on that?
I don't think we've covered most everything on that. So I do have something that I don't know. I'd mentioned to you earlier that I had something I was going to bring up, but I didn't tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across it a little while ago. And if you had already seen this, it's not something we had talked about. Honda is to rejoin in 26 as the power unit supplier for Aston Martin.
I've
Have you
seen that.
seen that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just saw that for the first. I don't know how long it's been out.
They announced that a while back.
I've apparently missed it. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I saw that and was like, "Holy shit!"
I hate it.
I knew you would because we have talked about many times how aggravating it is how Honda has always done this. We're in, we're out, we're in, we're out bullshit, and here we are again. They're doing the same thing.
I can't stand it. I really can't. And I think that's why, like, I think they tried to come back with Red Bull, and Red Bull was like, "No,
Mhm.
like, we can't keep doing this.
Right.
Like, we built this thing working together into this like perfect harmony, and then the year that it's all going to culminate, y'all announce y'all are leaving.
Yep.
When even though 3 years before that we had a long talk and signed a bunch of papers that said none we're both in it for the long haul,
Mhm.
and you do this anyway, and then like you stay and help support. We're going to take over the engine, but you stay and help support. But now you want to come back in because we're killing it. But it's like, bro, this is just a story of Honda nonstop,
Yep.
and I can't stand that.
Mhm. This isn't the first time or the second
Like, look,
or the third.
I get the smaller teams being like in and out of F1 because it's a money thing.
Mhm.
This is Honda,
Yeah.
like, come on, man. Like, just commit to F1 or don't.
Mhm. Agreed.
It's so frustrating. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
And I
I don't
didn't.
know why, F1 wants to talk about all this stuff. Why do they allow this nonsense?
Well, because now Aston Martin will be a works team.
No, they won't.
Yes, they will.
I mean, I guess technically they will.
Technically, yeah. As far as like you know, in an official capacity, they will be a works team. So therefore, F1's going to be all for it.
See, I think that whole term is kind of convoluted nowadays because like that's not a true works team. Like to me, a true works team is Mercedes, Ferrari, now Red Bull, but not for
Yeah,
long.
the
Um,
car, the
Alpine.
engine, all of it.
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
works team.
Right.
Like so, like there won't only so. All right, let's chase this because this is a good point. They're only wanting works teams to enter from now on. So let's say, okay, we're calling Aston Martin a works team. Let's say somebody else wants Honda's engine. Are they allowed to sell it to somebody else?
I
Because
saw something
because
earlier.
now that they would be no different from Aston Martin. Aston Martin would not be a work. I don't consider them a works team unless they have an exclusive deal.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, because I mean,
Even
they
still, it's not a true
essentially
works team, but it 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 takes
they're
care of the
they're
purpose of what
using
F1 wants.
they're using works in this aspect as a very generalized statement. They're using it as you're the only one running that engine, right? Because
But
yeah,
that's not
as far as what you're saying and what I agree with, a works team is you build the chassis and the engine,
mhm,
right? So for Aston Martin to be a works team, it would need to be an Aston Martin engine.
right.
But they are using works team as the parent team or the only team. So in that aspect, Andretti would be a works team,
Right.
which they technically, I mean, not right at first, but once they're using the Cadillac engine, they would be a works team, which I don't necessarily agree with using that term for them either.
Mhm.
So
100%.
because yeah, I mean, Aston Martin will just be a customer team. You're a customer of Honda. Yeah, okay, Honda doesn't have a car on the grid anymore, but still, you're a customer team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all very convoluted, but they keep allowing it. And you know why?
Money, money,
Money.
money, money.
Mm-hmm. So, with all that, unless you got anything to add, I think that ought to wrap this one up.
Yep. Lot,
So,
lot to look forward to. Lot to keep your eyes on.
yep.
A lot of things in the next month could change the landscape dramatically of F1 for the foreseeable future.
Yes. Yes.
And if nothing changes, I do think it's going to be exciting to see Hamilton and Leclerc paired together in Ferrari for 25. I
Oh,
think,
it'll definitely be exciting for sure.
and I also think, we're critical of whiners on here. I think it's something that maybe Lewis has been needing for a while is a change of scenery. But there was a point when you're winning everything, you can't leave.
Right.
So, you know, maybe we see a side of Lewis that we hadn't seen in quite a long time.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Maybe maybe
Fresh
he needed
start,
a fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start, fresh mindset.
Mhm.
Entirely possible.
And I think
So,
he might be the only driver in history that moving to Ferrari creates less pressure for him,
man, ain't you kidding? Or you ain't lying. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's I never thought about that, but that is generally known as being a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. So we have got in what do we say, 10 days. So yeah, the 21st is testing at Sakir.
I can't wait.
And then the 29th is Bahrain,
Can't
first
freaking wait.
race. So the long winter off season has almost come to an end. We're right here, right on the heels of testing, with a whole lot of stuff left to unfold.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'll leave you with this quote of it'll be a quote of a conversation that Lewis had with Matt Bishop, I believe, some years ago.
You say
And
2013?
I think that's what it was. Um, to where Matt Bishop asked him, "Do you think you'll stay at Mercedes until you retire?" And he responded with, "Well, what I'd really like to do one day is drive for Ferrari." Matt says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, that would be a great way to end my F1 career, wouldn't it? To win championships for McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari." So, if that gives you any insight as to the mindset and what sounds like he has had in his head for a long time coming to fruition. So, and on that note, call this one a wrap,
Yep.
and we'll see y'all after testing.
Unless some more crazy shit happens.
Unless some shit hits the fan. Yep.
Which if
Which,
Horner gets fired, then I'm sure we'll be on here to talk about it.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, we'll catch y'all on the next one.
later.